Okay. Hi, guys. It's Stella Jade here, and we're here with another episode of Building My Fantasy World of Algoria while also talking about writing and just about fantasy and romance writing specifically for this episode. So, we're going to do a little bit of talking about that, and then we're going to go into world building. Now, just to be completely candid, I was a little upset with the incarnate because it took away some of the world that I was building. So even though I saved it, it was gone. So we're going to probably have to rebuild. We will rebuild and it will be fine. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Stella Jade. I am the author of romance fantasy. I also um, own a book publishing company and I help authors self publish their work. I've written a number of books under another pen name, but I write romance fantasy under Stella Jade. So that's a little bit about me. My first book is called The Heir of Light and Shadows. This cover is the old cover. Let me I can't seem to pop it in there right there. I had a guy draw me the most amazing characters for this book, and I love this cover, but it has since moved on to a blue cover. And the second book has a red cover. The first book has mystery, suspense, high stakes suspense, mafia intrigue, and it's a portal fantasy. So it brings its characters through a portal. The second book is is completely in the fantasy world, and it's dark romantasy, and it's very spicy and has a steamy relationship building. So when we talk about romance fantasy versus fantasy romance versus fantasy fiction, obviously the fantasy fiction doesn't typically have romance in it as a major part of the genre. It might have a relationship here and there, but it's not something that's a major part of the genre. Description, rather. And fantasy romance tends to, from what I understand, tends to be more about the romance and the characters' romance with a fantasy plot surrounding it, whereas romance fantasy, otherwise known as romantasy, is really about the fantasy plot and it has a romance current through it. I love both of these genres. So I love the fantasy genre, I love the romance genre. And when I started writing this series, the first book, it wasn't called The Heir of Light and Shadows, it was actually called A Death at the Speakeasy Inn, and it was a murder mystery book because I typically had written murder mysteries. My first book was called The Secret of Colney Hatch. My second book was called Colney Hatch Buried Secrets, which I later changed to Green with Envy. And these are all mistakes I made as a first-time author. But I was writing these murder mysteries. I wrote another murder mystery that I never published. I wrote a fourth murder mystery that I never published. And then I wrote A Death at the Speakeasy Inn, and I really liked it. But I said, you know what? At this point, I really want to move into a genre that makes me feel like me and makes me feel at home. And I've always had this really like overactive imagination where I can just create these worlds in my head. I just never put them on paper. So I decided, let me take this book, this murder mystery book, and see if I can do something with it and make it into a romance fantasy. Because I knew I wanted romance, but I know I'm a huge plot person. I'm very focused on plot. And I wanted my fantasy world to be really rich and big. And not only that, I also knew that I am very much a skeptic. I want to believe in the magical. I love the imagination and what's possible, but when it comes to certain things, I feel I need to really believe that something is happening. And so even though I love fantasy, I can be a huge skeptic of fantasy. So I thought, well, some of my favorite books have an element that pulls you into the fantasy world in a way that it's believable. Something like Timeline by Michael Crichton is one of my favorite books of all time. I really like Outlander. I really like portal fantasies. I would even argue that like something like Peter Pan, where they start in the real world and then they're taken off to Neverland. I love that. And I thought, well, can I can I make this book into a portal fantasy instead of just jumping into a fantasy world? Would that make me feel more comfortable? So that's what I did. But there were other elements of the book that I wanted to add to it to make it more unique than what's already out there, but still stay within the marketable lines of what people enjoy reading. So I think I've done that. I'm sure, everybody has their own taste. Of course, reading books are subjective. So, what one person likes, the other person doesn't. One person likes vanilla ice cream, one person likes chocolate ice cream. So I can't say whether or not, someone would definitely like my book or not. But that's a little bit about that. And now we're going to get into some world building. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I was really upset that a part of the world that I had created actually on here and finished was wiped away somehow. So I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see. And, I don't know how many people will end up watching this. I didn't really announce that I was going to be doing this today. So it's really just if someone shows up, someone shows up. So, and I do have a friend. Hello. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this like last minute. So I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to come on. As always, my great friend and amazing writer friend is here, Jackie, to join. By the way, Jackie, what I was telling everybody before you got on was all the work that I had done for Triad, this port city, was just completely erased. I don't know where it went because I saved it, but it's gone. So that's that. We will rebuild, as we say. But if you have any questions, yeah, I know. It's sad. Jackie's here when we were creating this lovely little town. And actually, after we had done this, I went back in and I did so much of it. And it looked so good. And I was so excited. And then it was gone. I'm trying to figure out what I should work on today. What do you think I should work on today, Jackie? I'm going to let you decide. Anything. Pick anything, friend. There's a lag, so I have to wait. Okay. We'll go to the Shadowlands. To the Shadowlands. Here we go. Look, we're going. I don't think I want to do the Kingdom of the White Owl because that's not in book 2, but I think we could work on the Kingdom of Vano because Vano is described pretty deeply in the second book. So I don't have my copy. I'm still waiting for my other copies to come in. I mean, I have a copy on my computer, but I was going to bring up I think I remember what I wrote, so let's hope. But this is I really like the castle here. I think it's a good representation because actually the castle of Vano is described when Brody looks at it. He says it looked like the Taj Mahal. So that kind of really fits that. The Kingdom of Vano is also known as the Great White Serpent. And if you read the book, you'll see that it's kind of a interesting place, the way that they run. I'm just moving all the wording out because it just gets in the way. So on the shore here, again, this is going to be beach. And when Brody and his crew show up, which I don't want to give like too many spoilers away, but when they do show up, they show up there right on the beach. So I'm going to put in the beach as always because a lot of this is just like a coastal area. My children are screaming in the background as always, and so you will always hear them, and I will not muffle them because they're children, and so that's what they do. Okay, so we have the beach. When Brody shows up, he notices there are like a lot of bushes that kind of block this whole area, which is going to be the Kingdom of Vino. So we're going to look for bushes. And I'm going to save this because I don't want to lose it. Like whatever happened last time, I'm trying to make sure does not happen again. I'm going to open the catalog as one does and go into loading art and look for bushes. Okay, so the key is to spell correctly. Okay, so we have a ton of bushes. The bushes. This is kind of cool. It's like bushes with a couple of trees, you know? Jackie, do you have any questions that you think people would potentially want to know about any of this area or anything about the book that I should tell them, or like a topic? Because I'm happy to talk about it. I don't want to put you on the spot. What's going on here? Just stalling. Ah. I just wanted to look because if in the book something specific happens here, I want to do a little bit more. It's like I don't want it to be too much. Brody. Okay, let's talk about Brody. So who is Brody first of all? So if you read book 1, what you'll know about Brody is that he is an ex-FBI agent. Okay, and he has a bit of a troubled past, I guess you would say. He had an issue happen while he was at the FBI that caused a large traumatic event that then caused him to leave the FBI. And I really like Brody because, especially in book 1, I like Brody because besides the fact that he is just very handsome, he happens to be a very good guy. He's just a good dude. And he wants to do right by people, and he's been wronged, and so I think a lot of people like him. He's very much into protecting Lizzie because she not only does he want to like do the job that his old FBI director has given to him, but he also begins to like her when he meets her. And I'm not going to go like into too much more detail about that. But the thing about Brody, and then Jackie, I would like your thoughts on him and I'll share them with everybody. But the thing about Brody is that like he's very different in book 2. So Jackie, if you could compare Brody from book 1 to book 2 in just like a few words, what would be your description? And while I'm waiting for her description, I am looking for like a road, but more so a dirt path because I think I need to go. Oops, I just went into something else. Sorry about that, guys. What just okay, so look what happened here. What just happened? All right, an excellent evolution of trauma and change. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Wait, can we just pause here? Because if you're looking at this map, this map is totally different from the one I was just on. And everything I did was gone, but this is built up. And this is built up, but this is still not built up. And this is all gone. I am not understanding. Not understanding. This is sad. Yeah, Brody had definitely had he's definitely going through it, I think, book 2. He's definitely. Oh, it says there was an error. I might have to not do this tonight, which is sad because I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I could save it one more time. And if it gives me an error, well, I could always just talk. But this is the fun part. Did it save? Okay. No, it's not saving. So I'm afraid that I'm just going to end the building part and then I'm just going to talk to you guys for a couple minutes and answer questions because I'm scared that it's going to not save it and then we're going to be doing it all over again. So I apologize for that. But yeah, so if you just tuned in, Brody is really going through it in book 2. But in book 1, we see these really great qualities about him that, as Jackie has said, have trauma laced behind them. And then we see this change once he's in the world of Algoria happen to him on multiple levels. Like he doesn't just have one change, he has many changes, I think. And that really starts to bring something out inside of him. And I can tell you that for book 3, without giving any spoilers away, I can tell you that we're not done with the changes that are going on with him. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And also, if you're just tuning in, I was talking about writing romance fantasy in the first place because it's something that I have always wanted to do. So I've always wanted to write fantasy and I've always wanted to write romance. So it's just like being able to do that now and to be in this world. And even though I had trouble creating it tonight, I think it'll be back and I'll be able to do it maybe tomorrow. But to create it and bring it to life the way that I'm doing it is just, it's awesome. You know, it's just really awesome. All right. So if there are any other questions, Jackie, that you could think of or anything anybody else would want to know, I'll answer it. And then if not, we can just end for tonight just because I'm sad. I really wanted to do that, you know? Let me see if I can. Let's see if I refresh it one more time, what happens. Yeah. It just didn't save. That's so sad. All right. Well, okay, guys. I think that we will sign off for today. I'll pick this up tomorrow. I'm going to try to make sure it's working. It seemed like it was, and then it wasn't. And again, if there are any... Oh, you're thinking. Hold on. Before we leave, there is one thing. What is one Brody fact that you left out of the book or one thing that inspired this character? Well, she said, not because I'm obsessed, just because we're on the topic. Well, I think that Brody always had a even though right now it looks like the relationship is strained with his father because of something that happened, I think the dynamic that he's always had growing up, and of course, you don't always put the backstory of your character in, but the dynamic that he's had growing up, and you see a little bit of it in book one, is like he can't really talk to his parents in the way that he wishes he could. And you can almost see that with his sister as well. And so, because of that, you'll see that his sister Jessie and Brody have a little bit of a um, closer relationship than they do with their parents. Like it's a little bit of a distance because he says at one point in book one, and I'll bring it up actually. He says where is that one? Okay. He says that he can't tell his mom something because if he does, then his mom will go tell his father and they'll argue. And so, like, though it looks like that's just because what happened with his uncle, if you read the book, like, you'll kind of understand, like, this was always the dynamic that he really couldn't express himself fully because if he did, then it would cause. So you kind of see Brody's dad, I guess, in a different light because if you understand that, then you understand that his dad was sort of like, what I say is what I say, and if you contest it, then you're going to get an argument. So that's what I would say would be one thing that is different, that I didn't explicitly say, but that is part of his background. There's definitely a lag with this chat, so I have to like give it a couple minutes. Yeah. Let's see. And while we're on the topic, we could talk about Brody and Nina's relationship and kind of like what actually broke down their relationship. Brody's very hard on himself, and I think he's too hard on himself. And maybe that, as a writer, maybe that comes from me. I wish I could see like people and instead of just me talking. But this is not how the live works. But it's just funny because I have to like basically I could just be responding to myself the whole time. But talking about Nina, he's very hard on himself for this relationship, and he's basically like, I ruined my relationship because of this, because of this, because of this. And it's Shay actually, who is his lifelong friend, his neighbor, who says to him, you know, Nina, kind of made her own decisions. Hemi, who is his friend, he made his own decisions. But the thing about that is if we were to get deeper into Brody and Nina's relationship, I think that we would see that Nina wasn't as much of the loving, doting wife as he thought. And I think because she specifically was the type of person who was very codependent on him, but then when he wasn't giving her all of the attention, she immediately turned to someone else. And you can see that because they're not together anymore, and she is with his best friend, but she still texts Brody when she isn't getting the answers that she wants, and she calls him when she doesn't get the answers that she wants. Anybody else, like if you were done with a relationship, right? Like you would just be like, that's over here, I'm over here. Like you wouldn't be still looking for him to clean up your mess or to do your bidding or whatever it is. Like, and the fact that she callously asked him to get in touch with the one guy that like he absolutely hates, like basically who got his uncle, is just it says a lot about her character. And I don't know if you agree with that, Jackie, or if we're never gonna see Nina again. I can promise you that. I didn't like that, like even as the writer, I didn't like that she contacted him and said, can you call Hemi for me? I didn't like that about her. And I wrote her. So still, as I was writing it, I was like, I don't like you. Yeah. So yeah. So that's Nina and Brody. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think what's going to interest me most for book 3 is there going to be some kind of relationship development? My characters write themselves, so this isn't like something that I can tell you for sure. But is there going to be like a development between Lizzie and Brody? That's all I'm going to say. And if you read book 2, then you're going to be like, but exactly. That's what I'm going to say. Exactly. Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I feel sad that we were not able to do the world building, but I have high hopes that we will be able to do that tomorrow. This was a very choppy live, but it's a live, so it is what it is. Yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you, Jackie, for joining. Number 1 fan ever. Also, like nobody watches these. But when you do, you're gonna be like, oh. But anyway, I love doing it, so I don't care. And yeah, that's it. All right, so I'm gonna sign off. Thanks again. Appreciate you being here, and I'll see you later.